Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, or good night. I'm here in the Netherlands. I don't know how late it is. Let me see. But anyway, it's in the afternoon now, and I decided let me make another live stream to talk about what goes on in France. But I want to link what goes on in France with a broader topic. Okay? So it's me, Ari does it, or you call me Rashid, perfectly fine. I'm an anthropologist and sociologist over here. And hold on. We are going to examine the situation in France now from an anthropological and sociological point of view. Because I'm an anthropologist and sociologist. I do both. So, first, before I even start with the lecture of today, can you hear me clearly? Let me know. It's very important that you tell me if you can hear me clearly or not. Let me know in the live chat if you can hear me clearly. There's actually live chat right over here, so that's good. I'm using my new iPhone now, so the visual should be clear. I'm using fiber optic internet, one of the fastest internet in the Netherlands. So that with the iPhone visuals of the iPhone 14, the sound and visual should be clear. But I still want you to confirm it. Can you hear me clearly and see me clearly? Let me know. Okay, Mark says he can hear and see me clearly. Okay, that's good. Okay. One question first. Have you followed the news? What goes on in France for the past few days? Question for yourself. I'm going to give a brief summary of what happened. I'm not going to contain everything in the summary because summaries can't contain everything to begin with. It goes like this. There was this 17-year-old who was killed by a police officer, and it sparked riots throughout France. And the police officer apologized. The French president tried to calm the situation down, but there's been a rise over France. And if you go to social media, whether it's Twitter or you go to BitChute or whatever, oh my goodness. I've seen them throwing cars off of buildings because you have some of those garages, some of those parking spots are on top of one another. When one of those parking spots on top of one another, they were throwing cars downwards, and the cars fell down in the street, on the road and exploded. I was thinking, this thing seems like a scene from a movie, and I've never seen a movie like this. Then there were rioters that jumped on in a police car, driving around with it. There was also a building was set on fire. I mean, wow. Just wow. It happened very quickly. And the riots, I found out today, because I have to keep myself up to date too. Right now, I make this live stream, there are more things happening that I need to be updated to after this live stream also. But also in Belgium and Switzerland, riots have been detected. Now, that situation. Now, again, I've made a live stream before, talk about the difference between logical thinking and practical thinking, in which I've explained that logical thinking has to do with causality. A causes B, B causes C. You don't want C to happen, so you stop at A. If you stop A, then in your mind, C will not happen. It goes like this. Just a quick reminder, I'm not going to talk about logic versus practicality over here. I'm just going to briefly reflect on it so you will understand the rest of this class. Okay? So you have logical thinking. This centers around causality. A causes B causes C, etc. So in logical thinking, if you don't want C to happen, which is over here, you stop at A. Correct? But what if you have more things leading to C? Now, based on logic, you have to stop all these things from the start. I know what? That's correct. That's proper. But let's go to practical thinking. And let me do it red. In practical thinking, it's all about weighting out the costs versus benefits. So the question with practical thinking is, should we do this? With logical thinking, the question is, how do we do it? So practical thinking has to do with wisdom. Logic has to do with intelligence. So intelligence is all about how to do something, how to get something done. There's nothing wrong with that. But how to prevent something from happening. For example, if you have a headache, it can be because someone slapped you in the face because of violence. Someone slapped you in the face while you have a headache. That can be a cause. You can also have nightmares, because of nightmares you develop a headache, nightmare caused by trauma. Or you can also have that there's something else in your body, some medical issue that causes the headache. So all three causes are logical, but which one is more probable? Okay? So if someone slaps you in the face, all thing you do is calm down, take some Band-Aid, and you'll be better. Unless injuries too much. Then you have to go to hospital. If it's trauma, psychological issues that cause a headache, now you have to deal with the psychological issue, and that's going to be a bit more difficult. If it's a medical issue, you should certainly have to go to the hospital. So headache can be C, what you don't want to have. This can be violence against you, someone slaps you in the face. This here can be a medical issue internally, like a tumor or whatever. And this here can be psychological issues. But what if it's a combination of all three that's causing headache? Now you would say, well, stopping the violence already happened. The medical issue, you need to deal with it. Psychological issue, so logic you need to process. So logic has to do with intelligence. How to get something done? How does something happen? That's intelligence. Wisdom has to do with practicality. Should we do this, or is this worth it? You know what I mean? The thing with the Western world is, I grew up in the Western world, so I can know it. I have multiple master's degrees. I studied at Leiden University in the Netherlands, and also at Erasmus University Rotterdam. Okay? And let me tell you one thing. One problem with the West is that we are so obsessed with logic, which is a reflection of intelligence. We're so obsessed with this one, how to do something, how not to do something, that we often neglect the practicality of a matter or the wisdom, should we? For example, let's say you have to finish some assignments. Let's say you're in university. You have to finish some assignments for the next day, but you're so exhausted. Now, if you don't finish the assignments, you may get a lower grade. That means you have to do the course again next year. That's a study delay of a year. And if it was study delay of a year, man, it means I need to pay an extra year to be in university. It's going to be quite expensive. I already have a student loan debt over here, so you think, I don't want to do this course next year again. So a friend suggests to you, take this speed pill over here. I know it's a drug, it's forbidden, but hey, nobody knows about it. I got it from the club. Some drug dealer was selling it, with some left over here. Take some speed pill. It kind of energizes you. You can finish the assignment. You finish the assignment, you get your good grades. You can graduate this year. Nobody cares afterwards. Now, question one. Is this an intelligent or logical way to deal with the situation? Question to you, I want you to answer it. The examiner gave on to you. Someone has to finish an assignment for university the next day, but already exhausted. And they don't want to fill the course and do the course next year and have a study delay. So someone tells them, take this pill, speed pill. It's a party drug. Hey, it can help you stay awake. You finish your assignment, graduate this year. Nobody knows about it anymore. Is it an intelligent way to deal with the situation? Let me know in the live chat. What do you think? Let me know now. Is it an intelligent way to deal with the situation? Let me know. Just let me know in the live chat. I'll check your answers. Remember, it's a class. I expect you to be interactive over here. If you watch the replay, it's different. But if you're here when it's live, I expect you to participate. So Sparrowhawk and Mark, please answer if you can, if you're still here. Or the rest is here that hasn't revealed themselves yet in live chat. Please answer the question. Okay, got one answer ready. Okay, does anyone else say something else? I'll wait for 30 seconds more. What does the rest say? Was that an intelligent way to deal with the situation? Let me know. All right. Well, from a logical point of view, it is logical. The issue is, the outcome is you having a study delay of a year. Study delay means extra cost for your studies. You want to avoid this. But to avoid this, you need to finish your assignment. But you're not capable of finishing your assignment. So taking a booster in form of a pill to finish assignment, you will stop C from happening. You won't have to wait for another year to graduate. You graduate this year. So it's logical. It's the how to do something. It's intelligence. You found a way to cheat on your own human body to get something done. Second question, is it a wise thing, practical thing to do? Let me know in the live chat. Already established it was a logical thing to do. Let's talk about the practicality. Is it a wise thing to do? Let me know in the live chat. Is it a wise thing to do? Let me know. Let me know what you think. Wait for your answers. Is it a wise thing to do? Got one answer from Mark. What does the rest say? Is it a wise thing to do? So, it's not wise. Let me tell you why it's not wise. When you take that party drug, it's going to have a bad side effect on your body. Okay? So you will finish your assignment and you will graduate, but you'll have to deal with health issues that may take months to recover from. And you have the risk that you might get addicted to that party drug. Because you think, hey, last time I was under stress and pressure to get something done, I just took that pill. Hey, it worked. It was an intelligent move. It worked. So let's do it again. Intelligence. You avoid an outcome you didn't want by using that pill. Hey, let's use it again. It worked last time, it will work this time. Yes, it will work. But it will work against you in the long run because it has so many bad effects come around with it. And don't forget, that pill is forbidden. You're not even allowed to have it. So if they find you with it, you go to prison for it. See what I mean? So to get the pill, you have to go to drug dealers or the criminal world. So now you are in bad company. And the pills are not even cheap. So you end up spending money in criminal activity. You get known by the criminals. That alone is bad news. And the police will be on you too. You may even get a criminal record if you found out. So taking that speed pill to boost your body to finish that assignment to graduate, it was an intelligent thing to do because you successfully avoided an outcome you didn't want and got an outcome you did want, just graduating this year. But it was not the wise thing to do. Okay? So again, intelligence is about how to get something done. That's logic. Wisdom is, should you do it? Do the benefits outweigh the costs? All right? So, logic, which is intelligence, and practicality, which is wisdom. Now, let's look at the situation of France. Okay? I'm not going throughout the whole history of France, go all the way back to the colonial era. It's going to be too much to cover. Okay? Let's look at France since the 1970s going on onwards. Okay? There was this big international bubble going on, financially, economically, in the 1970s. Okay, which finances were quite smooth. until you had the oil crisis happening at some point, but that's another thing. When you look at France since the 1970s, France adopted a policy in which a Frenchman or a French woman is a French individual. So there's no distinction between, oh, you're a black Frenchman, or you're an African Frenchman, or you are a Algerian Frenchman, or you are a European Frenchman, or a white Frenchman, or you are a Asian Frenchman. No, they just said a Frenchman is a Frenchman. Simple as that. We're all one in France. That was the policy they came up with, based on the quote-unquote values of the French Revolution. Well, the French Revolution is a whole other topic. I don't want to talk about it now. It's quite different than you think it is. But anyway, they came up with that. And France, being part of the European Union, get open borders. Now, France had a large empire, okay, covering a big portion of West Africa. And this is the second French Empire. The first French Empire collapsed. The second French Empire extended all the way into New Caledonia, into Vietnam and all of that. So the second French Empire lasted for a while. So now you have a lot of countries in Africa that speak French. And a lot of those people also migrated to France. Now, if France colonized your area and you want to have a future in an area that's financially better off, and the financially better off area is France, it's logical to go there. And it's also a wise thing to do, also because it's worth it. But hold on. For generations, people have been moved to France, coming in and in and in. At some point, it should have been said, we need to calm down with this. France has limited space. We can't contain the whole world's population in France. Now, the whole world's population is not coming to France, but the people that are here need to integrate and get along in this country. If you keep adding more people with struggles and issues to integrate into your country, at some point, well, I mean, you already have a lot of people who need to integrate. They take another one, people in, more and more and more. At some point, you're going to think, well, hold on a minute. No, you slow down a little bit. For example, if you have a car and there are 2 front seats and a big bench on the back, like most cars are. Let's say the capacity of your car is 5 people, 6 maximum. Can you say after the 5th individuals in the car, oh, 3 more people want to come in, just come, just force it out in the car? No, because if you drive with that car, with people forced or not in that car, which is quite unhealthy and dangerous, if the police officer sees you, you are in big trouble, you even lose your driver's license. And nobody in the right mind will want to be in a car. The F1 is like sardines stretched, pushed onto one another. For example, in the Netherlands here, sometimes in the public transport, either buses or trains or metros are so full, especially during rush hour. Sometimes I thought, you know what, F it. I'll take another one. So I'm not going to be like a sardine pushed over there. It's not healthy. And if people get in panic, it's going to go wrong. So you want to do that. Well, the same is with a country. A country is an economic unit on behalf of a population. You have no country without the population. You have a population area, you have an economic unit on behalf of that population. That's a country. Okay? Now, some countries are part of unions. For example, the state of Florida is a country that's part of a union called the United States of America. So now the United States of America operates as the country on behalf of Florida. Even though Florida itself is a country in itself, with its constitution, its Supreme Court, its own state militia and all that, its own flag, its own anthem and all that. So Florida itself is a country in itself because it's part of a union to the outside world acts as part of the United States. If you look at Burkina Faso, similar to Florida, is a country in itself, but Burkina Faso is some part of some union to which is surrendered their quote-unquote political sovereignty. So it's why Burkina Faso, contrary to Florida, operates as Burkina Faso. See what I mean? So a country is an economic unit on behalf of a population. This is what a country is. So the economic unit it needs to have a motivated population to keep the economic unit working. You get me? So, a country cannot deal with an external population that is in conflict with the values of the local population, because the local population is what is actually why this country even exists. Okay? So, for example, let's say you have, let me give a good example. Let's say take Korea, for example. In the 1400s, you had the Kingdom of Korea, or the Joseon Dynasty. You had the Joseon Dynasty in Hanseong, which they call Seoul, the capital of Korea, and it governed this area that they call Kingdom of Korea. You had the Korean population, which was the base of the country. The country's economic unit. To make this country or economic unit work, the Joseon Dynasty had an isolationist policy. They would not allow too many foreigners to come in and settle over there. Because one thing you to understand about human beings in this fallen state, in this fallen state of ours, we tend to flee by default. Anytime there's difficulty or challenges in life, people in general tend to flee instead of facing what goes on. That's a defective fallen mankind, we tend to flee. Well, this escapism is what the Bible calls sin. Now, you can stop certain activities of fleeing, but the fleeing itself is something deep-rooted into you that you can't get rid of yourself. You can suppress it and manage it, but you can't get rid of it. It's only when you walk, only when you serve the Heavenly Father through Christ Jesus that this whole escapism or sin can be uprooted out of you. Simple as that. We cannot uproot it out of ourselves. So you can't just stop sinning. It doesn't exist. You need to walk by faith and you need to outgrow this escapism. See what I mean? So you don't fight sin, you outgrow it. But though to the sinful or fleeing state of mankind, countries everywhere are quite fragile. In a country where people face things and deal with things, you can handle foreign populations. But most countries in the world, population is just fleeing. Okay? Simple as that. So if you have a country where the base population over there is fleeing, that means that the only way the country can function is everyone flees the same way. So if you have a dominant culture in a country, let's say you have the Kingdom of Korea from the 1400s, you have a population over there that flees a certain way. They have their way of scapegoating and fleeing. And then you have the Manchus over there. They escape in a whole different way. If a lot of Manchus begin to move into the Kingdom of Korea, eventually the Manchus way of escapism and the Korean way of escapism is going to clash, even though they may be similar. Now, if you have a lot of Manchus in the country and the base population Koreans, and you have a minority over there, they both can turn on, okay, now it can still work. Because you have two groups, two cultures acting out against the common scapegoat. Everyone gets relief out of it. I know it's cruel, it's wrong, but that's fallen mankind. Okay? If you have more than two cultures in one country, then having a common victim is not going to work anymore. With two cultures already, it's going to be a difficulty. But a bicultural nation can still work. But if you have multiple cultures in a nation, I'm talking about fallen mankind, I'm not talking about beliefs with one another. Beliefs one another, they can work it out. But unbelievers, worldlings cannot. They're all into escapism. So we have more than two cultures in one economic unit in one country. That alone means a country will crash at some point. You follow me? So let's take, for example, the Philippines. Okay, in the Philippines, you had a Chinese minority that states the Spanish colonial era. So you had the Filipino population in the Philippines, you had the Spanish migrant population, and you also had the Chinese. So you had two cultures. You had the Filipino culture, and you had the Spanish culture in the Philippines. The minority were the Chinese migrant population. So it was easy for the Captaincy General of the Philippines or the Kingdom of the Philippines to function because you had the King of Spain being the head of the Philippines. So you had the Spanish society being dominant over there. So you had the Spanish community over there, you had the Filipino community, which was a majority, and they had conflicts with one another back and forth. But hey, because the Chinese migrant population was there, they could all turn on the Chinese migrants and they still had a functioning country called the Philippines. When Spanish society fell off because the Philippines separated from Spain in 1899 and they became part of the United States temporarily, well, not really part of the United States, but they were occupied by the United States, this became more complicated. Because now you have the Filipino population, the Chinese migrant population, and also now Americans coming in. And but Americans are a generic term for Black Americans, European Americans, Hispanic Americans. So now, yet a crisis that went on in the Philippines. Now eventually was resolved because the Filipino population became the dominant ones, suppressing all the others. What I'm saying is, with worldlings, it's all about escapism. People want to escape. If they can't escape, they will lose their mind, they will escalate, simple as that. So do you understand what I just explained about what a country is and why in the world a country cannot house more than 2 dominant cultures? Is this clear to you now? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know. Is this clear to you now? Let me know in the live chat. If it's not clear to you, let me know too, please. Good. So understand the following. A country can have 1 dominant culture or 2 dominant cultures, but it cannot have more than 2 dominant cultures. You know what I mean? If there's more than 2 dominant cultures, you're already going to face dysfunction throughout the country. What is function talk about, Rashid? From a social law, let's say from a sociological point of view. Sociology examines the group dynamics in society. A culture is a bonding mechanism of a group or groups of people. And within one culture, there's already conflict going on. You get me? So one culture in a country, there's conflict, but it can work out. 2 cultures, both cultures have conflicts internally, but they both can cooperate at the expense of a 3rd, minority culture. You still have 2 cultures that are present in a country. So in sociology, they would say this is just this is just a function of the conflict. There's a conflict model in sociology that groups have conflicts, and through conflict they preserve themselves. So their cooperation is based on a conflict. And society is conflict, I can tell you. So let's say now you have 1 or 2 dominant cultures in a country. In that case, you can either identify with one dominant culture or the other, but you're still part of the same country. And you can still get along with people from the other culture too. If there is a difference, you can use a difference as an identifier for yourself. But if you have more than 2 dominant cultures in the country, it gets a bit overwhelming for you as an individual and also for the groups. And because you're being overwhelmed, you tend to close off and be kind of radical towards your own small group of people. So people tend to radicalize in xenophobia when you have more than 2 dominant cultures in the country. This tends to happen. And once people radicalize like that, they become more hostile towards one another. So instead of having a few groups that form one culture, then you have splinter types of groups that become like splinter cults, being suspicious of one another. So as an individual living in such a situation, you tend to have less friends, you tend to be less open and outgoing towards people, you tend to be quite reserved and on the lookout. So the climate is toxic. So multiculturalism or a multicultural place, it can work if it's the workplace or if it's a festival, if it's a financial activity, you can be multicultural over there because the money is linear anyway. When you're dealing with a living space, being multicultural is not a good idea. Absolutely not. So now I'm explaining that to you from a sociological point of view. Let's go to the anthropology of it, the base philosophy. A culture needs a mission. Okay? A culture without a mission is not a culture. For example, in the Roman Empire, not Roman Republic, the Roman Empire, the Roman culture established in the city of Rome was the world needs to be prevented from barbarism. So the mission of Roman culture was to make sure the stability in the world. The Roman public saw themselves as their duty to make sure there's stability in the world. That became the motivation to behave a certain way. Now, Roman culture was mixed Greek culture because Rome or Roma was a Greek colony with a mixed population. Okay, so Roman culture was there to be inclusive towards all the other nations and to stability. That's why Roman culture was different from plain Greek culture, which was considered quite harsh into your face. Now, the same things that you had in Greek culture, you also had in Roman culture, because Roman culture came forth out of the Greek culture. You first had the Greek Empire, and from the Greek Empire, you had the Roman Empire. But the Roman culture, or Greece 2.0, was a bit more inclusive, because they had the mission, we need to stabilize the world. So a culture needs a mission, a common goal for everyone as part of that culture. For the Chinese civilization, the culture was to preserve the Chinese ethnicity. So to keep China as close as possible, Chinese ethnicity is preserved. So in that case, you now have norms that a Chinese individuals only have sex with other Chinese individuals have Chinese babies. Now you have strong family values. You have to treat your Chinese family very well because you're on a mission together. So our culture needs a mission for the members to submit onto. Okay? So that mission must be something that triggers the public to act. Because a mission like, oh, just enjoy life, you're going to die one day, YOLO, as it's called in the United States, that's not a mission. That's just plain escapism. Now, the public tends to escape, and because it tends to escape, you need a mission to keep them structured. So, YOLO, you only live once, is not a mission. A mission is an actual outcome you as population are striving towards. Simple as that. So a culture can only be established if people agree and pursue the goal. So there must be a goal because all the norms and values in the community are centered around that goal. For example, because in the Chinese civilization they believed that China was the center of civilization, that's why you had those high standards of how you should behave towards one another, how to have emotional discipline. Because why do you have emotional discipline? Why do you have those high family values? Because we are heaven on earth, we're the center of civilization. And we as center of civilization, we need to reflect civilization in a stable way. So all those norms and values sit around the goal, the striving, to be the center of civilization. The Romans, as I told you before, they wanted to bring stability. They saw that as their mission. That's why joining the military was such a high thing, because the military was their main tool to secure Roman rule. Before I continue, is it clear to you now that a culture cannot function without a mission? Is this clear onto you? Let me know in the live chat. Is it clear onto you? Let me know. That's good. Is it clear? Let me know. All right. To Marcus, clear to the rest too? So, now you understand why a country is the economic unit on behalf of the population. Now you understand why a country cannot have more than two cultures in it that are dominant. Let's say, for example, I'm going to use let me think of a good example that I can use. For example, let's take a look at Cuba for a moment. Cuba remained Spanish territory for a long time, even Spanish America collapsed. So in Cuba, you had the Spanish culture because Cuba was part of Spain, but you also had the local Cuban culture, the Creole mixed culture of Cuba. Now, the Spanish culture was centered Roman Catholicism to be of a good contribution to the Pope. There was Spanish culture. And because of that, you had strong law and order and all of that. The local Cuban culture had a more, it was influenced by the Spanish culture, absolutely, but they were more about fighting for their freedom or establishing their autonomy from both from Spain and from the rest. Those two went hand in hand. So you had the local Cubans insisting on autonomy. They were working kind of a struggle with the Spanish government, and you had the Spanish being over there, being dominant in the culture expressions. It went along well. When Cuba, I'm going to say there were no revolts, there were conflicts. When Cuba was removed from Spain and was in the hands of the United States, the United States did not incorporate Cuba as a U.S. state. Why not? Because now, think about it, the strive for independence that was the local Cuban culture, it now had to change because independence was achieved. So if they would now become part of the United States, they would go from being occupied by Spain to being occupied by the United States. And the United States had deep-rooted racism in it. And a big portion of the Cuban population was black or from African ancestry. So being part of the United States would have clashed immediately. So that didn't happen. And so the Cubans now had to develop a new goal for themselves. Well, it didn't happen that smoothly because you had some people who were conservatives, wanted to maintain Spanish culture over there, though it was independent from Spain. You had those who were pro-United States, wanted part of the United States. So there was a cultural clash going on in Cuba. And then yet socialism being introduced. And now Cuba's culture became part of, we need to help the workers worldwide. Beginning in Cuba. That was the vision of the Soviet Union. We need to help the workers worldwide. Help the workers. It's all about the workers who are working. So Cuba's culture shift now had a mission, protect the workers worldwide. And based on this, they had a socialist regime, and the people were motivated in their life to defend the workers worldwide. So you also had attitudes against the United States being established and pro-Russian attitudes. You see now? So now Cuba was not occupied by the Soviet Union. Cuba was independent, but now there were not two dominant cultures anymore. There's only one dominant culture. That was the Cuban socialist culture. You get me? So what I'm saying is, our culture is a deep-rooted movement centered around the mission. Write this down in the live chat. Our culture is a deep-rooted movement centered around a mission. Write this down in the live chat right now. Our culture is a deep-rooted movement centered around a mission. I want you all to repeat it in the live chat. I'm going to wait for you to repeat it. Repeat it, please. Our culture is a deep-rooted movement centered around a mission. Okay, I want all of you to repeat it in the live chat. It's very important. So, for a culture to function, the mission must be clear and subscribed by everyone over there. Yes, you'll have subcultures who tend to kind of resist the big culture, but even subcultures have a mission that's in harmony with the big culture, because the subculture exists because of resistance to the dominant culture. So even a subculture needs the dominant culture to exist. So, for example, people that, for example, the heavy metal or a lifestyle or the punk lifestyle, all those alternative lifestyles, which sprung out of a type of resistance to the dominant culture, they still need dominant culture to exist. Because without dominant culture, what are they resisting? So even their mission as a subculture needs the dominant culture. See what I mean? So they can get happy net. What it comes down to is that what happened to France is that the mission of the French culture has not been clearly defined. So France did not have an actual mission for a long time. Yet, what about preserving the French language? I mean, the French government is providing cheap French courses worldwide. Okay, they do that, but is there an actual mission? We need to preserve the French language. I mean, they speak French anyway in France, so, and you have many other countries speaking French also worldwide. So French is the world language anyway. So preserving the French language, that cannot be an actual mission. What is the mission of France? Without a mission, you have no culture. And here's the thing, the mission ought to be enacted by the population. And what happened was this, a lot of people enter France, get the French nationality, become a French citizen. They're French like everyone else with same rights and duties. And they enact a whole different culture with a different mission within France. But hey, I'm a Frenchman. So eventually you have all these missions going out there in France. And there's no central mission for the country. So that's going to lead to conflict, and the conflict's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And before you know it, you're going to have deep-rooted resentment. And once you have deep-rooted resentment in a population, the only thing that needs to happen is one trigger event, and all the unrest flows out. And that's what happened to France right now. It happened a few times before, here and there locally. Think about the Yellow Vest movement. Think about, even this year, you have the whole issue with the pension legislation that they enacted and all that. But in this case, the reason it's going down right now in France is because there's no mission for France. No clear defined mission. There is none. They show you baguettes. They show you the Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe. They show you French music. They show you French fashion. Okay, well, what's the mission over there? There needs to be a mission over there. You get me? Places without a clear mission can never last. But here's the issue. A lot of the migrant population in France do have a mission. They have a mission derived from Islam. Oh, and guess what? Some of those people become radical very far to preserve that mission. So France itself, that lacks a proper mission, has people within it that do have a clear defined mission. So if there's a conflict, long term, who is going to have the advantage and the leverage in France? Those with a clear defined mission. France itself doesn't have a clear defined mission. It's going to lose. All right? So, some people say, oh, we need to close the borders. Leave the European Union. Brexit. Leave the European Union. Logical thinking, intelligence, leave the European Union, close your borders, and deport all the people who are not incorporating French culture. But hold on a moment, that's all logical. Let's go to the practical. What is the French culture? What is the mission that the French have? Oh, now I realize that the logical thing you want to do is actually not practical. It's not wise. If there was a clear, very clear French mission that formed the French culture, then let's say everyone who's not in harmony in the lifestyle with this French mission needs to get out. Oh, but here's another problem with it. They have a French citizenship. And according to your own French laws, they are not allowed to be discriminated based on their culture. So, closing borders, leave the EU, those are all things people, right-wingers are screaming right now. It sounds logical, and on paper it's logical, but in reality, in practice, it's not practical, it's not wise. So what needs to happen in France right now, I say from a social anthropological point of view, is that the public needs to establish a clear mission for everyone within the borders of the country. This is the only way this economic unit can work. Then, once you have the anthropological part in place, the sociological part must come into place, which is they'll promote the mission they've established through advertisements, through job offers, through finances, especially through finances. It's not an easy process, but that's the way to get out of this. And to do that, they need to admit the grievances of the past also. Are people willing to do all of this? I don't think so. And that's why it's going down. Now, France has fallen is a hashtag. Until now, France, the Republic of France, is still in place. Okay, so I'm not suggesting the Republic of France doesn't exist anymore. It's still in place. Okay, it's just a hashtag that's popular right now. And we use these hashtags both because it attracts viewers and because it relates to the topic of this live stream. All right. For example, Dr. Feline is saying, Dr. Feline said over here, it's written in the Old Testament already that the people perish without a vision. The vision is the mission of that the culture surrounds upon. You have a mission, and a mission is a center of what we call the culture. Culture is a deep-rooted movement centered around a mission. The mission is the vision that's enacted by the leaders on behalf of the population. So the population must be in on it too. So without a vision, there's no mission. Without a vision, you can't have a mission. And without a mission, you have no culture. So you have a vision established by the leaders. The population is in on it. It becomes a mission, and now it's enacted. It's a culture. See what I mean? So it's vision that establishes the mission, and the mission pushes the movement. That's the culture. So without a vision, the people perish. Indeed, the Bible is even saying it. But this has been the problem of many of those right-wingers. They say we need to stop globalism, we need to fight the EU, we need to fight the whatever, we need to fight, always need to fight something. But what's their vision? The vision is what they want to have long-term. If you have a vision, you can form a mission. That's what I mean. But without a vision, you can't have a mission. Without a mission, you have no culture. And without a culture, you can't have a country that functions. So again, vision you need to establish a mission, and the mission generates the culture that makes it possible for your country, this economic unit, to function. Without a vision, you can't have a functioning country. Simple as that. Is this clear to you? Between vision, mission, culture, and country, it's clear onto you. Let me know in the live chat. God is good. It is clear, let me know. I'll wait to see some of your answers. Okay. Yes, I did. I just explained the bins of establishing a rooted country. A country is an economic unit. An economic unit, how do I explain economic unit in layman terms? The economic unit is an established trait within the population. Okay? You have fishers, fishermen, farmers, textile workers, and you all are in an established trade. That's an economic unit. Okay? The economic unit is what you call the country. But it can only be a functioning country if it's a culture. And the culture needs to have a mission that's part of a vision of the leaders. And this is why republics are so unstable. Because in a kingdom, whether it's an actual kingdom with a king or an empire is a regional government that has multiple kingdoms in it. In a kingdom, you have a central figure that embodies the vision. Okay? For example, Canada is a kingdom. King Charles is the embodiment of the economic unit called Canada. And as the embodiment, he becomes the fatherly figure that motivates people to participate in this economic unit. Whether people like King Charles or not doesn't matter. The fact there's already a central figure already is a motivating factor for the human mind. Because the Heavenly Father himself is the king over the human species. So the Heavenly Father is the king over all human species. And locally, we have human kings that are the head of our economic units. The Heavenly Father supports kingdoms and also some said empires. The Heavenly Father never supported republics because in a republic, you only have the businessmen competing for the economy. So in a republic, you have the population and you have the businessmen competing all the time. And you have someone that presides over the gathering of the businessmen, which is the president, who makes sure that the competition doesn't go out of hand. So a president is the head of a gathering to make sure the conflicts amongst the businessmen, the financial conflicts go out of hand. So that's what a president is. So a president, by default, is not a leader of a population. So a republic has no leadership in it. It's just a bunch of businessmen upset one another, and now there's a president keeping those financial conflicts at bay. And the population is part of the conflict that goes on. In a kingdom, the king has his family, the royal family, and the population is an extension of the royal family. The royal family, so in a kingdom, you have the king, who is the most sexually ambitious man in the population. He's the king, and he has this big family, the royal family, and from the royal family, you have the population as an extension. So the royal family is the head family of the population. So psychologically, you're always included. You're not part of the royal family, but you're an extension of the royal family, that's the population. Because without the population, you have no royal family. And below the royal family, you have the aristocracy. The aristocratic families are the supporting families that keep the economy locally going. So you have the aristocrats and their aristocratic families who are locally keeping the economy going, and you have the royal family above them motivating everyone in the same direction. Kingdoms are natural and in harmony with our human design. But in a republic, you have population and people fighting and bitching one another, and you have a president that uses violence to keep the conflicts at bay. So a republic by itself has no leadership and it's not motivational. That's why in Africa, you have some African republics where locally you have local kings. So, for example, in Nigeria, you have some provinces that are run by local kings. Nigeria was established as a colony by the British. The British left. So, the economic unit called Nigeria is still there, but you still have local kings within the economic unit doing things. If you have a president regulating it, because the Africans understand kingship is important to the human mind. Think about the United States. There's no kingship established over there. That's why the population look for the king of pop, the king of rock and roll, the king of R&B, and all that. Kingship is a human need. We need the kingship of God himself over us, and we also need local kingships in our local communities. Kingship is a natural thing needed for the human mind to function. That doesn't mean there's no conflict in kingdoms. There are. but republics have a deficit. A republic by default means financial conflict. Listen to me. A republic by default means financial conflicts because everyone is fighting for the finance and the president's only there to make sure the financial fights get out of hand. That's it. And all the presidents even fail. And the president himself is part of one of those camps that are fighting financially. So you're going to have the liberals having fights financially, the conservatives, and you have a liberal president. Now the conservatives are upset. Then you have a conservative president, liberals are upset. So the president himself is part of one of those camps. So a republic is a rotating conflict. That's all it is. All right. So that's why in countries without proper kingship, a lot of people turn to satanic cults in which you have those weird bastards becoming kingly figures over them. Because human beings are built for kingship. That's why. Kingship is natural. Republics are not. Yet don't think a republic is a sign of freedom. We choose our own head of state. No, you're not choosing anything. When you vote for a national election, you're showing your preference. But it's those with the money who are fighting to eventually decide who becomes president. That's how it goes. So, republics, you have a president that keeps financial conflict at bay. The financial conflict is still there. In a kingdom, you have an economic unit with a financial direction installed for the community. So therefore, the never supposed republics, only kingdoms and empires. All right? So, I hope it's all clear on to you. Do you have any more questions about this topic? Please let me know in the live chat. Please let me know. Do you have any questions about this topic? Let me know in the live chat. After this, I want to make some phone calls with some believers, but right now, do you have any questions? Let me know right now. Let me see. I've been in for over an hour. Okay, that's good. Okay, if you're living in a jurisdiction of a republic, first of all, financial conflict is the norm in any republic. So expect financial conflict. So expect it. Secondly, avoid becoming part of financial conflict. Why? By striving through your faith walk to be as financially independent as possible. Because if you're not financially independent and you live in a jurisdiction of a republic, guess what? You are either becoming the victim of some of those groups are fighting, or you end up drawn into a conflict. But Rashid, if you live in a kingdom, there can also be conflict, yes, but there's a direction that everyone will go into because it's a kingdom. So you just going along with that direction already means you're benefiting both yourself and the community. And in the republic, there's always conflict. So the benefit of the community can be quite difficult. So if you're a believer in a jurisdiction of a republic, expect financial conflict and through faith insist on becoming as financially independent as possible. And also do not get too involved with the political fights over there because politics is a game to begin with. As I already explained to you. All right? So I hope this answers your question for me. God is good all the time. Yeah, this is what I said, Philly. But apart from that, knowing that Christ the King is your supply, realize you're in a republic. So financial conflict is the norm. So that's why you need to emphasize your own economic relevance through Christ as soon as possible. If you're in a kingdom, like for example, Norway or in was another kingdom, Morocco or whatever, you can still face persecution because it's the world, but the public's dynamics is a bit different. You get me? So you have different challenges. If you're in the public, there's an automatic financial challenge on you to not be sucked into conflict. Simple as that. Amen. Any other questions? Let me know, please. All right. God is good. I haven't received any other questions here. Okay, so thank you all for being here. Keep on agreeing with Christ. Be at peace. And I'll see you next time. God is good and His word to be praised. He will give us back according to what we have done. Shalom.